everyone. We have with us today a wonderful, beautiful assemblage artist. Her name is Kathleen McSherry. Kathleen, I'm going to roll it on to you so we can start this interview. Just give us a quick little introduction of who you are and where you are.
Okay. I'm an assemblage artist, as Carolyn said. I live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and my studio is in part of the house, and I have a gallery in the other part of the house. So I live and work steps away from each other. I have had a long history of a life in advertising. I was an art director, so I have always been doing things that is arts related, being art direction, producing commercials, designing print ads, and I did that for many years. And then as the jobs began to dry up, because I was an art director in packaged goods, and now it's basically advertising pharmaceuticals. So then I took a job. I was working at as a marketing director for the Michener Art Museum here in Doylestown. I was there for I guess about not quite 7 years. And then I hit where the rubber meets the road. I had always talked, when I bought this house, I made sure it had a studio so I could work in it. And I always said this was what I would do when I retired. But retired is a bogus phrase because an artist doesn't retire.
That's right.
And so I said, either you do it now or you will never do it. And then I just made sure I worked hard and got a huge body of work in a pretty short time. And I went online and I'd research shows. So I've had over 100 shows in New York and Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And I had a real wonderful reception for my work. People like to look at it, and that made me happy, and that gave me the impetus that I was on the right path. So I went from advertising, art direction, to marketing, to here. So It was 3 steps away.
Wow.
And I say that my first year in advertising, I worked for a very famous agency. It was called Young and Rubicam. And there I learned to work very, very hard. Wow. So I took that with me every place I went. And so now when I get up in the morning, I go to my studio or I go online and I search for other opportunities, but I'm constantly working. So I'll put in 8 hours in the flash of an eye. I mean, I'm constantly updating my website. I'm constantly working on new pieces, making notes, seeing what's next, letting the pieces of all the things that I've gathered over the years, I let the pieces tell their stories. It's not me pushing it. It's a very kind of organic. I just follow the path where the pieces lead me. And usually, and quite a number of times I'm surprised. I start at point A and then I'm at point Z. And I don't know how I got there, but I really like the results of it. It makes me feel good. And it feels right and it feels finished. So not only do the pieces tell me where they want to go, but they'll also tell me when they're finished. So.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's dynamite. All so special. They, there's nothing like duplicated. They're all unique, and they're just, it's just lovely, and it's exciting watching and looking and seeing, imagining you putting this together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did you come to assemblage? I mean, how did you come to that, instead of like painting or,
Well, I did paint and draw.
Okay.
Always throughout my life. My uncle and my grandfather were painters.
Okay.
And I schmied around, and I played with painting, but I also, in the process of this, I am an avid auction traveler.
Okay.
I go to auctions. There's one on a Saturday morning up here where I am, where I'm always looking for new pieces, more what I call more ingredients, and put them all together. So it's the love of auctions, and it's the love of pieces that either spark a memory, or they've outused, outmoded their usefulness, and it's just, I have to have that piece, or I'll see a piece and I'll say, that's what I have to work. Now, I may have a piece that I bought that's sitting in my studio. I had one for, I guess it was 3 or 4 years. And it's the measure of success. It's the head with the man dribbling money.
Right.
Meat is all around. I had that piece for a long time. And then I bought a box of meters. And I said, I just have to have it. And they were all different. And I knew, and when I brought it home into my studio, I looked over at the head and I said, that's it. That's it. And it became very clear of what piece I would do. So
is artistic life lonely to you? Do you feel it lonely? And if so, how do you resolve it?
Okay. I don't think of artistic life as being lonely, not at all. I like spending the quiet time in studying the pieces, thinking about the next move. Usually I'm working on 3 pieces at once, because the glue and other things need to set, so I'll work on another piece. But I'm never lonely. If you live in an arts community like I do, always through meeting people and always having shows, that you'll have a camaraderie of people who speak the same language that you do.
Wow.
So, and it's just not, it's not lonely, it's not boring, actually it's exciting. Wow. I'm a very solitary person, and this is a way I can still concentrate heavily on what I do, but not get the distractions of other people that, oh, gee, wouldn't it be nice if you had this piece, or that piece? And I say, thank you very much.
Right.
Into my studio. I had that happen a lot. A lot of people have given me things. I saw this and I thought of you. Oh, thank you very much. And
wow.
I can't work with, but occasionally they add to the piece.
Okay.
So I just let it sit and percolate for a while, and either I use it or I don't.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Now, what do you like about your work, and what are you most proud of?
Okay. Let's see. What I like is the process of the work. And what I like is when I finish a piece, seeing others' reaction to it. I had a show in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which was Pennsylvania Dutch area. And there were a lot of artists. It was there. It was the opening. And I saw an Amish guy, full dressed in the suspenders and the straw hat and the beard. And he was looking at one of my pieces so intently, like he had never seen anything like that before. And he was glued to it. And
Wow.
I stood in the back, not to disturb him, and I just watched him. And I got such a thrill of bringing art to this man who probably doesn't have a studio area, but appreciates it.
Right.
And he really, you could tell by the way somebody looks at your work, whether they really get it and they really like it. And he was glued to it. And I felt like $1 million when I left.
Wow, wow. Thank you, thank you. Now, what's the most challenging aspect of being an assemblage artist?
Well, you're always on the prowl for new ingredients.
Okay.
And things that inspire you. And so I'm always looking. Sometimes I'll find something on the curb that is worth something to me. But a challenging, I would say it's just looking for the right pieces. I'll know it when I find it.
Okay, okay. Now, do you do any research, or is the research for you, like you mentioned, just actually going to these auctions? Would that, or do you research any humanities, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. I am focused on the ingredients of assemblage.
Okay.
I live for that. But as I'm making a piece, I might say, gee, I wish I had X as a little piece. And then I'll go and research maybe eBay or Amazon and see what's available. And then it'll either push me in the right direction, so I know what I'm looking for locally, or I will bid online and hopefully I buy the piece.
Right.
So I have a lot of, let me just share something with you. I work a lot with clock cases. And this is what I work with. And this is like, I use it as my as a canvas.
Okay.
So when I do that and I use it as my canvas, I don't know where I'll go afterwards. I'll get a whole lot of things. I'll find out some things are too big, or it's not saying what I meant it to say, so I have to rethink it. But it's all, I have 12 of these clock cases.
Wow.
That are just waiting to become.
Wow.
I think I've done now 14 of them. So that's the only constant in my work.
Okay.
But I do a lot of other pieces as well.
Okay.
I don't restrict myself to just clock cases. It's too limiting.
Okay. So what would be your dream project? Your dream project? Dream
project would be to have a solo show at the Whitney. That is the dream project.
Wow, wow. And I don't think you're far away. You know, the more people.
Mouth to God's ear.
Yeah, yeah. Well, name 3 artists you'd like to be compared to, or have inspired you. Either way you put it, you know, 3.
Okay. Well, I'm inspired by Robert Rauschenberg, and he is quoted with a saying that I have over on an easel in my studio. Okay. First, you begin with the materials, and that's an axiom I use every time and he also combines and alters things in a certain way. So he's got his own style and his own way of doing things, but when you see it, you know it's a Robert Rauschenberg. It's nobody else. The same is true for Louise Nevelson. Yeah. She brings everything together, and I have a bunch of wall pieces of art that is similar, not similar in tone to hers, but the fact that they both hang on the wall, and they're both, and we both are looking to get to get the message out of the materials.
Mm-hmm.
She sprays her painting, she sprays them all black or all white, and I just let them live as they were in
Mm-hmm.
pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And the fourth one is,
A third, yeah.
yeah, the third one, I'd have to say, is Cornell, his boxes.
Okay.
And
Nice.
they too, they tell a story. And I try to tell a story or create an emotion through my pieces. Some of my pieces will put you in an uncomfortable position, and that's intentional. Some of my pieces will make a statement, and that's intentional. And some of them are just whimsical, and they'll make you smile. And it's like I set my sense of humor loose.
Okay.
I don't think art has to be deadly serious.
Right.
I think a lot of it is inviting. Working for a museum was very helpful to me, because you think, why would these people come to see your show? Well, if they're going to feel better when they leave after seeing my work, I've done my job.
Yes.
Or there's some pieces that will stick in their head, and the memory of those pieces will last. I've done my job.
That's great. What is your favorite or most inspirational place?
Oh, I'd say the beach.
Beach,
I'd say
okay.
the beach in winter.
Oh, in winter. Tell us about that. Why,
Well,
what?
There's nobody there.
Okay.
And it's just, you're just there with the elements. You may walk along and you may see some sea glass, or you may see a piece of a shell that reminds you of something, or you'll just feel the wind in your hair and the smell of the beach. And I find that very energizing.
Okay.
And any museum, really, I'm inspired when I go out. Even if I didn't like anything in it, I get a message. And that's very rare that I can. But any museum, when I leave, I'm dying to work in my studio.
Wow. That's what. So you would say definitely to artists up and coming, and even the more matured artists, you would say definitely visit the galleries and the museums and so forth.
Oh yeah. You learn so much. I find when I'm looking at pieces, I'll say, that reminds me. It'll be of a story. It might not be another piece. It might be a memory that I'll work on that has nothing to do with any pieces, but I store that in the back of my head, and I'll work with that too. But I mean, you're in a place where creativity flows. And if you can't get inspired from being surrounded by creativity, my heart goes out to you.
Right. True. It's true. All right. Well, what is the best piece of advice you've been given that you not just read, but the best piece of advice that you've been given?
I guess the best piece of advice I got while I was still in advertising.
Okay. What was that?
It was just 2 words: be yourself. Be yourself. And if you can be yourself and bring yourself into each piece that you're working on, or in terms of, I worked with a friend, we did a lot of wonderful commercials together. We brought our likes and our dislikes, a piece of us, into the commercial. They were better commercials.
Wow.
So again, if you can put yourself on the line and give some of yourself to your viewers, you're on the right path.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about, what's the importance of art funding?
I would say every artist that I know and that I respect does not make art for a living. There are some who make a living, and God bless them. They sell their pieces for $2 or $3 million, and that's wonderful. I wish them well. But most artists work because there's something inside that they have to get out. And when you fund the art, you take care of that. FDR knew how important the art was. And when he started during the Depression, what is it called? The
WPA.
WPA, and he's put artists to work.
Yes.
He has no idea the legacy lives on and on.
Yes, yes.
And it's something I remember when I was a kid growing up in Queens. I would go to the local post office. My mother would send me for stamps, and there was a mural inside from the WPA. So I was online and I would stare at it, and I would always get something new and different at it. Now that's one person, a kid, but that post office sees I don't know how many millions. If you just look up, you'll be inspired by it.
Yeah.
And you'll help other artists find their voice.
Yes.
Because they're not worried about how they can pay their bills or if the rent gets paid. I mean, we all have problems with that, but that's not why we chose this life.
Wow.
You know, if it was, I would have picked a different profession. Finding a sponsor is important, and there's a couple in New York who he's a retired post office worker, and his wife, a documentary film was made about them, and they would visit artists in their studios at lower ends, and they would buy the work, and they would buy it on time.
Right.
And they filled their house with artwork, filled it.
Wow.
And they fed I don't know how many artists, but there was even a documentary made it was both their first names. I can't remember it off the top of my head. And they had filled it, so they came in with a tractor trailer to take all of that art. Wow. And they brought it to the Smithsonian.
Wow.
And they said, they bought the Smithsonian paid for their whole collection. So I don't know what they got for it, but it was. And they asked the couple, "What are you going to do now?" That it said, "Buy more art." It wasn't going to change at all.
Right.
And,
wow.
And if you can allow people to do that, to put back. We're not alone on the planet. We're all meshed together.
Right.
And when we're at our best, we interact with everyone. So,
well, on the last note, what role does the artist play in society? From your viewpoint, what role?
See things. If you're a visual artist, we see things in a way that's different from how people who are an artist. If you have a visual sense, it's wonderful, and you'll get certain images out of the work. But some of my pieces speak to people who don't have an art background, but it makes them feel a certain way at the table. I'm raw with my emotions, and it comes out of each piece. Right. Might not be the same emotion the viewer's looking at, but it's emotion as well. If it makes them laugh. I was in a show at the Monmouth Museum down by the shore, and there was a little boy, maybe 7 years old, who was fixated on one of my pieces, Coney Island cat. Behind the cat's mouth was one of these store displays that when you moved it, it was like they were winking or whatever.
Okay.
The kid got so excited. He went and he dragged his mother, "Ma, look inside of it. Look inside. There's something going on in there." And it made my whole day, and I think it made the kids' day. He saw something that nobody else saw because he was at this height, and he was looking right up through the cat's mouth. But it was his height, and it was his story, and it was his emotion of being excited. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I saw the little kitty cat come by.
Yeah, he's using my leg as a scratching post. Yeah. So
Wow.
I,
Well,
I like getting up in the morning and I have no plans for pieces, but suddenly they'll find themselves.
wow. Wow.
And
Wow.
if you can perpetuate that in somebody else, whether it's teaching them about art or teaching them the way they see something or a point of view, it's an equal opportunity profession.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Kathleen McSherry, thank you so much for sharing your art, your viewpoint, your just being here during this pandemic. I don't care about it. We are here and we're still staying creative. And again, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Carolyn.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.